All right. Well, welcome to the Collector Car Podcast. This is a big mega Monterey review. And for this episode, I have a special guest, Rory Carroll. Rory, how you doing today?
Not too bad. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Now, we have just met just before this call
Yeah,
officially. I
despite
wanted
our,
to,
our best efforts previously.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to find out, you're semi new to Arm Sotheby's, and this is your first time on the podcast. If you would give our listeners a little overview of, what you do for RM as well as what you've done in the past in the automotive world.
Yeah. So I'm currently the head of marketing and communications. Like I said, fairly new. I came on this spring. Prior to that, I was running Jalopnik, the car website, and then prior to that, I was uh, running a custom content agency out of Crane Communications. And then prior to that, I was head of Auto Week magazine, so I was a publisher there, and I was there for quite a while, 7 or 8 years, and then had stops at Haggerty and done some other old car stuff. I was a freelancer for the New York Times Wheels blog, and kind of been around cars for the last 20 years or so.
Wow, that's really great. Now, where do your tastes in cars lie? Are you pre-war? Are you muscle car? Are you exotic? You Porsches? What are you?
It depends on the day. I think like I own a Porsche, I own an old 911, and then I have a Willys CJ2A. I have a Lada that is now being built into a hill climb car. I have kind of messed around with American stuff, and I have a lot of the kind of soft spots in different areas. I think like not really, I would say a particular taste, I guess. I have been like lately into like big late 60s, early 70s American cars.
Oh, nice.
I think that's something that's like not it's a type of car that's not represented on the new car market at all. There really isn't like a big comfy American car with rear-wheel drive and a V8 available anymore. There are big comfy you know rockets like the Cadillac CT5V Blackwing,
Right.
um, but there's not like a I just did a road trip in a Buick Electra deuce and a quarter 67 and drove it from middle of Missouri to Detroit in one go, and it was like, you know, it's just such an excellent experience and such a good like I said, it's a car experience that you can't get on the new market. So like I've been kind of captivated by those types of cars lately, but give me a month. I think like being on Pebble Beach, I'll probably find a whole host of pre-war cars to fall in love with, and we'll start the cycle again.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's great. Well, I appreciate you being on the podcast. Hopefully we'll have you on a few more times as we have some cool stuff come up to public auction. So like you said, pre-war cars, we got a lot of pre-war cars here. And I think the biggest thing I wanted to get out in the open at the beginning here is just the scope of this sale. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable. It'll be record setting. I've tried to capture some broad strokes as far as number of cars and some of the things we have going on here. So this is 263 cars, one painting that will be sold
Yeah.
over 3 nights in August the 18th through the 20th. I did interview Kelly Teffler, who is donating this painting. So if you want to hear more about that, go listen to my interview with Kelly. That's posted now. And so just from a broad strokes perspective, the low estimate ballpark is over $250 million in cars. 265 is what I put it at. And the high estimate is 325 million. So you're talking $300 million in 3 nights, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's as the marketing guy here and as the PR guy here, um in a given year, usually you'll have, maybe a good year, you'll have a handful of like star cars where it's like, okay, these are our bell cows, and the sale is going to kind of succeed or fail on the performance of these cars, and these are the ones that get all the media attention. These are the ones that are on the magazine ads and all that stuff. And like going through the list this year, it has been you're spoiled for choice, but it's kind of like, it's like you don't want to leave any of these cars out. You don't want to give any of them short shrift, but it has been genuinely difficult to represent this massive collection of significant cars. It's not, we talk about record sales, previous record sales are volume affairs over several days, and we're talking about 1,000 plus cars. This is, like you said, 200 and I think you said 265. Is that right? 260 some cars.
Yeah, 263.
263.
You're averaging over $1 million a car, right?
Exactly. So and it is I guess it's it's a good problem to have, but it genuinely has been difficult to contain all of it and to represent everything in our marketing and our PR. So we're running really hard in the office, and the team has been incredible. I think we're set to launch a catalog tomorrow, which is the 22nd. If this will come out after that, so it'll be live by the time this comes out. But we're way ahead of schedule, and everybody's kind of working very diligently to get everything up. But yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of very significant, very important cars.
Yeah. And just to give everybody kind of a sneak peek into this, because I've done a deep dive. I mean, you could start with our number 10 car from the valuation, and that's a star car by any stretch. So just to review our top 5 cars, and we'll go more in depth here in a second. The 5th most valuable car, this is crazy, 1958 Maserati 450S, estimates 9 to 11 million. I mean, that would be a star car in its own right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of those Oscar Davis cars, we just had 5 of them in New York at Sotheby's on display, and really can't say enough about the condition of the cars and the kind of stewardship of Oscar Davis over the years, keeping these cars in excellent condition and just beautifully preserved. And that car is a total goosebumps car. We moved it into to Sotheby's office late last Wednesday, and so I got to have some real hands-on time, kind of pushing and positioning those cars. And it, like I said, you just can't say enough about how well they've been cared for, how well they present today, and then obviously the significance and kind of desirability of something like that is. Again, it's the number, you said number 10 car, number 5 car, number 5 car on the list here. But any other year in Monterey, you'd be like, this would be the cover of everything we put out. So, but yeah, really cool, like really beefy, total 50s sports racer, a Mach 5 or speed racer type car, where it's just like so out there and so aggressive, and such a hairy looking car. It's incredible.
Yeah. And for my listeners, this is kind of the overview episode. I will go more in depth on some of these cars, so be sure to stick around, as well as some of the fun facts about each of these cars, because we just can't get into the details on all these on this podcast, but we'll do what we can. The next one, so this one's pretty interesting. 1938 Talbot-Lago Teardrop Coupe. Now, if you remember, I believe it was Amelia. This was the biggest winning car of the weekend for all of the auction houses. I think Gooding had it, and it sold for somewhere around $12 to $14 million. And to your point, that was the biggest car of the whole weekend. And this is our number 4 car. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. This is actually one of my favorites, though. It is incredibly striking in person. It's a really, like, in a lot of the photos, it looks black, but it's almost like an eggplant color, like a purple. So incredibly striking. And then obviously the idea of this car having been built to run at Le Mans, which it did, is totally impossible to imagine. Like competing in a car that looks the way this car does. And I think that was one, we hosted international media in New York, and that was a car that I don't think a ton of people in kind of the non-car, non-hobby media were super familiar with. But it was an absolute showstopper when you could follow people around the gallery. And when they caught that car, that was one that, jaws dropped, eyes widened. It's like such an incredible shape. And so, again, it's, another Oscar Davis car that is just immaculate, and everything works exactly as it should. The travel on the door handles is exactly the right, everything is calibrated the correct way. It's like flawless, smells great, like like it is, yeah, just an incredible piece, and one that's almost impossible to imagine owning and driving, because it's just so pretty and so well presented.
Yeah, yeah, it's really beautiful car. And just to give a little update on this, I didn't say this earlier, but the first two cars we mentioned, the low estimate on each car is $9 million, and the high estimate's 11. Broad strokes here, but for the top five, because I don't have the an estimate on the number two car, we're talking 70 to $85 million for our top five cars, which is just nuts. The next one's a Mercedes, 1937 Mercedes 540K Special Roadster. Now, I did my math on this, and we had like 26 Mercedes, a lot of them pre-war, in this sale. Estimates 9 to 12. What do you know about the Mercedes there?
Yeah, I mean, the collection is kind of been a closely guarded secret, as far as who these cars are coming from. But the another just huge collection of a collector with a very particular taste, I'd say. But also, one of those things where it's like, okay, we have one or two significant pre-war Mercedes. We can probably figure out who the buyers for those cars are. You get 2 to 5 or 3 to 5, and you're looking for a few more buyers. And then with a collection like this, it becomes again one of those things where it's like, how do we represent these cars, these individual cars, which are in any other sale a highlight of the sale, and now they're among what do you say, 30, 36?
26. Yep, 26.
26 pre-war American cars or Mercedes cars. Yeah. But this is again a very striking car. It's actually here in Chatham. So I've been able to walk over to it a bit, and obviously incredible. But yeah, it's going to be a fun night. We actually have some fun kind of activations with Mercedes, with the factory, with their hosted media out there in Monterey. So really cool to be able to bring a collection like this to market. And it's been such a huge part of kind of the Pebble Beach story this year, having this collection of almost entirely pre-war cars, almost entirely best of the best stuff. The Hispano-Suiza that's in the collection is just mind-boggling, the Tulipwood. But being able to have a sale on Thursday night and bring cars like the Special Roadster and this Hispano-Suiza, really, really a neat thing for us, and really, like, that's been a pet project of Gord Duff, who I'm sure has been on the show and our head of auctions. And it's like, this group of cars is his kind of white whale dream collection. So it's been awesome to see him realize it, and hopefully we sell them well and get them to new homes that really love them and care for them.
Yeah, and we have two more cars just to cover in our top five, but sure. I do want to say there are a lot of other cars coming up here briefly, because I kind of broke it up into groups of everyday cars to next gen cars. Yeah. So it's a lot of pre-war stuff, but we got some incredible other items. Now, I need you to take this next one, the 1998 McLaren F1, because this has been internally announced, and as we're recording, it hasn't been publicly announced, but it will be by the time this publishes. So I don't have all the information. So tell us a little bit about the McLaren F1 we have coming.
Yeah, so this is a not that there are normal McLaren F1s, but this is a unique car. It's got special headlights. It's got a very rare, I think it's one of 6 body kits, high downforce kit. Obviously, it's 200 from new, very low mileage. I think it's 16,000 miles. Incredible condition car. but one that we haven't provided an estimate on. I would say for me and people of kind of my generation who grew up as car people, this is equivalent to a 250 GTO, or to, name your blue chip market leading type car. I believe the McLaren F1 is, certainly among, if not the greatest sports car ever made. I grew up feeling that way, and I think there's probably a number of collectors who, who are in the market for a car like this, who had kind of a similar viewpoint on it. So I think this will actually be sold outside of the auction proper. This is will be sold in a novel novel format. So that we've done this a handful of times already. It's a process that we invented. It's now being named Sotheby's Sealed, but it's a sealed bid process with a couple kind of variations. It's done all electronically. So the car will be on display at the Portola. It'll be available for view, but it will not roll across the block, and it will not be sold during auction hours. I think it closes Saturday afternoon. So it's a really cool process. There's more information about it on the site, and there will be kind of instructions and details on how to get involved if you're a bidder. But it's something we're really proud of, and I think something that, since Bring a Trailer is the first really novel digital auction format that I know of. So it's really cool. It's very private. You don't see what the other bids are as a bidder, and you don't actually see the final hammer price, as the no one sees it. So we'll make a decision on whether to release it, and usually that involves the consignor as well. But it's a really neat process. It's very competitive, and we see we've seen a ton of great feedback from bidders saying how exciting it was and how much fun it is to buy a car this way. So I'm excited about it. Not only is it a car that you feel privileged to even be in the same room as, but then selling it on our own proprietary platform, an invention that came from, right here in Ontario, is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that is really great. So I'm curious to see, the activity around that, obviously, and I can't wait to, hopefully I'll have some pictures posted if you're watching this on YouTube, so you can see what a beautiful car it is. Now, the last one sold publicly for about $18 million, just to give our listeners a little bit of a taste for what these things have been going for. And crazily enough, that's not our number one car for the auction, right? Our number one car is this 1955 Ferrari 410 Sports Spider. Low estimate, 25 million, high estimate, $30 million. And I know this one has got the who's who of race car drivers piloting this car, right?
Name a driver. Name an iconic 1950s driver. I think this is again, very much in the model of the 450S, just that total speed racer, super hairy, super powerful 50s sports racer that is the absolute type, it's very representative of that type of car. The history here, I think Carroll Shelby won 8 races in this car, and it actually has an inscription from Carroll. There's a lot of cars that have been signed by Carroll Shelby over the years, but this one has a note on the gas tank that says something like, "Mr. Ferrari told me this is the best car they ever made." And it obviously drives beautifully. It would be welcome, any event anywhere in the world. But it's just so striking in person. It is such a presence. It's a monster of a car. It's like I said, it is exemplary of the type of 50 sports race cars that we all think of when we think of kind of the golden era. So really excited to see how that one does. Hopefully get to hear it run one more time before it leaves our custody. But yeah, just a really spectacular thing.
Now that one had Fangio drove it as well as
Yeah.
Phil Hill, and it's kind of the car Carroll Shelby made his name in, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you can see why he had such affection for the car. He was very successful in it. But yeah, like I said, yeah, Phil Hill, Fangio, Carroll Shelby. I mean, make me a list of cars that were touched by those three, let alone the other names who are associated with the car. It's pretty short. So yeah, will be very cool to see how the market responds, and hopefully it goes to somebody who's going to bring it out to Laguna Seca and keep it going to Goodwood and keeping it in front of people who want to hear it and see it. It's an incredible car.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I can't wait to see it in person. I haven't seen it. I saw the wonderful video that we posted, but I haven't seen it yet. So yeah, that's the highest estimate car for the sale. And just to show the wide variety of cars being offered here, the lowest estimate is actually a Crosley 3/4 midget for 20 to 30 grand. So you can buy over 1,000 midgets for the price of that one Ferrari.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
a little bit of something for everyone. The other thing I wanted to point out is the range. So our oldest offering is a 1912 Rolls-Royce Silver Ghost. And our newest offering, we actually have two of them. And I want you to specifically talk about one of these if you could. One of them is a 2022 Porsche 911 GT3 Touring. And the other one is the one I find really fascinating. And I believe by the time this release, the big update our announcement will come out tomorrow, being August the 12th at the time. It's the 2022 Porsche Sally Special exclusive series. Is there something you can share with us, even though the official announcement's not until tomorrow?
Yes, totally. I'm very excited about this car. This is actually a project that is coming kind of from the mind of two good friends of mine who work at Pixar, Jay Ward and Bob Pauley. Bob is a character designer who had a ton of kind of iconic characters to his name. He and Jay have been working kind of with Porsche on how to kind of represent the character of Sally Carrera. You remember the 996 from the original Cars movie, how to represent that in a modern car that you can own and drive. It is being built today as we speak. We'll be ready for Monterey come hell or high water. But it is in that iconic shade that we recall from the movie, but also just a very cool piece of pop culture. And if you're a Porsche person or really a car person, it's hard to kind of overstate the role that those films have played in making new enthusiasts. As we it's I think it came out in 2006 or something like that, but a generation or a lot of kids who are just now reaching car owning age grew up on those movies and fell in love with cars in large part because of those movies. And so to be able to work with Pixar and Porsche to create something that's being sold for the benefit of charity too is super cool. And again, Bob and Jay are fantastic to work with and just brilliant creative minds. And especially Jay is just incredibly credible and knowledgeable car guy. So that project will be very cool. I'm very interested to see what it sells for. But I'm super excited to be associated with it. It should be very, very cool.
Yeah, I was fortunate to meet Jay at an event a couple of weeks ago. And what was funny is I was outside of this event and I saw this incredible motorcycle sitting out front. So incredible. I had to take like a couple pictures of it. Yeah. And I get inside, turns out it's Jay's. I'm like, oh, that's cool. He wrote it. I don't know how far he wrote it, but it was a ways, so
yeah.
Super nice guy. Yeah.
Yeah. The last time I spent time with him was at Pebble Beach. A couple years ago now, but it was pre-COVID, and we ended up, the two of us, driving around for an hour and a half trying to find and fix a turn signal fault in his 911, which is a super cool, super original. I think it's a 76. But yeah, the two of us scratching our heads and trying to figure out an electrical fault was a fun night. But it was he's a great guy, and again, such a car guy, and such like a wealth of knowledge from all types of cars. So again, super cool to have him involved.
Well, and next I do want to go over like some of the, I don't want to say everyday cars, but there's some cars here that are uh, that appeal to a wide variety of folks. And so we
Yeah.
have, we have Porsches, we have race cars, we have pre-war royalty, we have JDM cars, we have muscle cars. So I'm going to change this up a little bit. I'm going to give you 5 cars, and you talk about the one that speaks to you most. Okay.
Okay.
I already know which one you're going to talk about because you mentioned it earlier. All right. So we've got a 1955 Porsche Type 597. I don't know how to say this. Jagdwagen.
Jagdwagen. Yeah. Yeah.
So military Porsche amphibious vehicle. We have a 2004 Jeff Gordon Chevy Monte Carlo NASCAR. We have a 1924 Hispano-Suiza Tulipwood Torpedo. JDM car, we got a 1995 Nissan Skyline GTR, as well as a couple other ones. And then the last one I'll give you is the 2012 Shelby GT350 convertible, which is fairly rare for that generation. So which one do you want to kind of go a little bit more in depth on?
That actually is very tough. I think like the Jagdwagen. Yeah, the Tulipwood I will talk about, and if I don't, Gord will kill me. But that is I think without sounding like a jaded been in the business for too long, I think if you go to car shows like Pebble Beach and you go to auctions and all that stuff, it's easy to kind of become blind where you can walk by a row of cars that if you saw on the street you'd stop and photograph and try to find the owner or whatever. That Tulipwood is, no matter who you are and kind of where you've been and what you've seen, it is a shocking car in person. I mean, talk about presence, talk about the condition is incredible. But seeing that car go down the road as we have for the last couple weeks here in Chatham is shocking. I mean, it is as big a presence as any 8-liter Bentley or whatever the big presence car that comes to mind when you think of a car that you can almost see coming before you see it. That thing is mind-boggling. And Gord will say probably the most important Hispano-Suiza to come to market recently, maybe ever. But yeah, just a it's not a car that I think kids grew up with on a poster on their wall, thinking about, oh man, if I could own that Hispano someday, that would really be something. But it's a car that when you see it is an absolutely undeniable presence, and it's like it is such an event, such a cool thing. But that Jagdwagen actually we had in LA at a press preview, and again, like a car that probably not a lot of people, unless you're Myron Vernus, spend a ton of time thinking about. But
did you just give Myron a shout out of Akron?
Myron is a big.
Oh, he's a buddy.
Guy.
Yeah, oh my God. Yeah.
I actually have a set of Porsche seats that he gave me on the condition that I get my car running, which it's still not. But out of his, I think he had a Jagdwagen that was like painted yellow, had the Pasha seats, had a roll bar, and was like kind of sported out, like kind of
sounds like Myron. Yeah.
yeah. So I have the Pasha seats out of his Jagdwagen, and actually I sent him a picture of I don't know if I'm supposed to say this or not, but I sent him a picture of that car at the LA press preview with people kind of crowding around it, and he actually corrected one of the bullet points on our initial the sheet that we have on all the auction cars. So he knows them. And that is a very cool car. I mean, a very, very like totally unexpected, would be awesome to show up anywhere. And I love that little thing. And then I think, I'm not going to name check every car in here. I will say the Jeff Gordon car is very cool. I think, to me, I think Cup cars with significant history, a lot of these cars are either in Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s backyard, or we're kind of tossed off or live second lives racing or whatever. We're not necessarily thought as super valuable, but I think like as golden era Cup cars become more scarce, I think I'm very interested to see if a market could develop for those cars. Like I said, I think like old Cup cars were disposable and often were disposed, but I think that was the case with a lot of race cars historically. And I think um, just like golden era sports racing cars created an emotional connection with people who later became collectors and connoisseurs. I think maybe not at the same scale, or maybe it is at the same scale, but there are a lot of people who are very passionate about those cars and have um, some very important memories of those cars. So I kind of keep an eye on those, and very interested to see what this one does. And I think, like, obviously it would be a super fun thing to own, to have in your garage. So yeah, there's, again, totally spoiled for choice, incredible variety of things, but yeah, I'm interested to see where that one goes.
All right, you gave me two things I got to follow up on here real quick,
Yeah.
and I actually have to get up because this is a shout out to Myron. This is what Myron gave me. You can see this
cool.
online. Let me see if I get it there.
Yeah.
It's the I think it's bourbon in a 1964 and a half Mustang ceramic. When I went there, he had a whole pile of them. He got somewhere, and he knows I'm a Mustang guy, so he handed one. And it's in the box from 72 or something. So Myron's a great guy. The other thing is just, for our listeners to understand this Tulipwood Hispano-Suiza, just to picture it. You can go online and you can see the pictures. You can watch this video on YouTube. But I guess, kind of picture a pre-war, like you said, a Bentley or a Rolls, but just in different shades of gold. I mean, because it's made out of copper and brass, and you got the stained wood that goes to a torpedo tail.
Yeah, and you can kind of imagine, it was a race car, and it was built. The thinking was that the wood body would be lightweight, but it is absolutely mind-boggling to imagine forming that. It's a very curvy for the period, sort of aero body, but all wood, all obviously completely handmade with copper and brass, and yeah, just a sight to behold, and really unlike or mostly unlike any pre-war car that I've been around. Like I said, it's just stops you in your tracks, and goes down the road really, really well. Gord's been driving it around a bunch, and yeah, it's a shocking thing. It's a very exciting car. I think there's some as a lot of the cars of the era, there were some modifications and changes made to the body. Gord has been, I think, when he talks to people who are potentially buyers of the car, has talked to them about kind of bringing it back to its original specification, or kind of bringing it back out to show again, kind of in a different, slightly different look. So, yeah, just an incredible thing, and I think, again, a car I hope we'll see at some of the bigger concours in the years to come.
Sure. Yep. Well, I know we have a lot of cars left, and I'm going to go through this in some big buckets here, and I want you to pick out what you want to talk about, basically. So I mentioned we have a lot of Ferraris. We actually have 30 Ferraris. Low estimate on the Ferraris is 104 million, high is 127. The ones that stuck out to me, and if you would pick one of these, the 1959 Ferrari G250 GTO Tour de France, the 1985 Ferrari 288 GTO is always iconic. Next, that one's going to be around forever. And then the 68 365 GTB4 prototype car. So if you had to kind of give your 2 cents on one of those, which one would it be?
I mean,
I know it's hard.
Yeah, that is very, very hard, but I will have to say that the 288, again, not to like date myself, but that is a car that absolutely appeals to my kind of Group B fantasy, but also I think historically is very interesting, and its kind of place as a car that's coming on and kind of being recognized as a blue chip car is interesting to me, but it also just looks like that is my platonic ideal of a sports car: big hips, low to the ground, and something that looks modified. It looks like it was beefed up to go racing, and that's the one that sticks out for me. I think those in F40s, much as it would, I think a lot of people would disagree, are some of the coolest looking Ferraris ever made. Obviously, there are probably prettier Ferraris in the history of the company. And certainly the other two cars you mentioned are probably much prettier in a traditional sense. But to me, that 288 is just more exciting. It's just it is more kind of in line with my what I dream about or what I think about would be a pinnacle type car to own.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yep. One thing we haven't actually talked about yet, which is shocking when you talk about high dollar pre-war crazy incredible cars, we haven't talked about Bugattis, and there's actually 10 of them coming to the auction.
You're giving me anxiety here, Greg, making these lists of the.
That's not my intent. But we'll just talk about this one briefly. The highest estimate one is a 1932 Bugatti Type 55 Roadster, one of only 38 built. So raced back in 1932, back when it was new. So any comments on just the Bugattis in general that are coming to Monterey?
Other than the fact that we're kind of tasked with obviously finding homes for all of these incredible cars. Not really. This one is very cool, kind of black and yellow color scheme, as everyone's kind of probably familiar with seeing Bugattis of the era. Another Oscar Davis car, incredibly well presented and cared for. Good racing history, and it should be. It's actually rebodied in period, and sorry, was it rebodied in period? I don't want to be wrong.
It was. Yes, this is the one I believe that was. Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, another Oscar Davis car. I think that collection, we would say is the most or one of the most important single collections ever to come up for sale. So to have it as part of our Monterey sale, pretty mind-boggling. And again, another car that would be a star, would be the highlight of a typical sale.
Right. No, I agree with you. And I don't want to take you through too many more of my lists here, but I do have two more. So one of them is I wanted to highlight how we have some next gen cars. We got a lot of stuff the next gen's going to go after. They've done that before. I mean, I remember, I think it was last year, the very last car we had in the sale was a Skyline. I think it was an R32, and it was that dark kind of purple. And man, there was a crowd waiting around for that one. It's the very last lot, and it oversold estimate by like $100,000. Yeah. So I have three I picked out. Let's see, a 1994 Nissan Skyline GTR. This is the race car, very historic race car from a JDM perspective. 1976 Lancia Stratos, and then one that I really think people have really started to wake up on, a 2010, believe it or not, Tesla Roadster. Any comments on these as we wrap things up?
Yeah, the Hasemi car, incredible. We had a great we had the good fortune to have Larry Chen shoot those photos. So Larry is a very accomplished motorsports photographer and really knows these cars, and was very excited to go out and shoot at Big Willow. So if you get a chance to go flip through some of the photos of the Skylines, do it. They're incredible. This car absolutely looks the business. I'm kind of interested to see what a competition car does. How the market responds to a competition car. I think, like, if you think about high dollar recent sales of Skylines, to me, the ones that come to mind are obviously road cars, little low mileage and unique colors, that kind of thing. But I think, this era of touring car racing in Japan made a lot of legends, and this car has a fantastic history. the livery is absolute knockout, super cool period livery. One of the liveries that you think about when you think about that era of racing. So I'm excited about that car. The Tesla thing is very interesting to me. I think there are a lot of opinions about the company Tesla today, but I think those early Roadsters are interesting to me as a collectible, especially as we kind of edge down the road toward mass market acceptance of electric cars. The fact that the cars can have a new battery installed and kind of live a second life, the fact that they have the Lotus underpinnings, that they have the kind of background of the pre-Elon Musk Tesla. Fingerprints of the founders of the company on them, and really were kind of I think everybody would have to admit a turning point in the story of electric cars. I think they're very interesting. I think they're also very limited and very distinct. I think if you look at a Model S, Model 3, or whatever the current, Model S has been in production for a decade now, largely unchanged. The Roadster was a comparatively very short run. There aren't a lot of them out there. They're still usable, if you have access to, like I said, getting a new battery and that kind of thing. I think they're very interesting, and I think, like I said, whatever the opinions are out there, I certainly have my opinions of the company as it is today. It's hard to deny that was a total shift in the way that the world thought of electric cars. So I think, I'm interested to see. It's one of those cars that you think like, oh, could I buy one today and hold it? I don't really. I do that. I just hold the cars forever. I never sell them. That's
You never sell them.
I'm a bad investor in that sense. But I'm really interested to see how those do. And I think they're cool and would be a fun thing to have. I think, especially in the context of a more, I would say, whatever, established type of collection.
Yeah, I agree. It's industry disrupting technology, and it's
Totally.
you got to look out for that stuff. All right, so you've said this before, from your era growing up, these supercars that were on your, on a poster in your bedroom, whatever it might have been. So I'm big on what I call last analog supercars. I mean, all supercars prior to 5 years ago were analog, for the most part. So it's really the last ones. These are the ones that had the most power, for the analog generation. I would say 1990 to 2012, 2013. Would you agree with me, or would you say a slightly different window?
No, I think that's about right. I think, that's exactly right. I think, things started to change. I think when you started to see Porsche 918, LaFerrari, McLaren P1, the kind of hybrid era, that was when, the old formula of like ultra lightweight, aggressive aero, high power, kind of gave way to some of the more technologically advanced cars. I think, there are modern supercars, modern hypercars that provide a great not analog, but visceral and kind of real experience. I'm thinking specifically of like McLaren 720S and 675 LT come to mind immediately there. But I think you're right. I think, that late, it's like when they figured out engines, when engine technology kind of hit its peak, but before they really figured out the advanced traction control and the advanced computer systems, and then the hybrid thing. So it's like they could make a fantastic engine. They knew how to make a car handle. Tires were starting to get really good, and they really understood aero. Again, I'll say like the McLaren F1. I think, for me, I think I can make fairly compelling case for that being the best performance car ever made. And I think the market is starting to say that too, which is really interesting to me. And I think, you know, that is maybe the stratospheric example, but I think there are cars kind of lower down on the dollar scale that the market is starting to respond to. Cars with manual transmissions, cars like you said that offer a more analog experience than what's available on the modern hypercar market. I think like Singer is kind of a response to that. The popularity of Singers and the desire for those cars is a response to, I think, a feeling of modern cars being a bit too tech heavy.
Yeah. All right. So I didn't want to go through all of them because we have a lot. I mean, I put, if you go to my website and go to the show notes, I got like 11 listed here, but I think we have about 15 of these analog supercars. I'll just rattle off a few and let me know if there's one in particular, preferably not the F40 because I already talked about that, or the F1, something different. But we got a 1991 Jaguar XJ R15, which is super special. Yeah. We got another Jaguar XJ 220. We've got the Ferrari 512M. We got the Mercedes SLR McLaren. I mean, we've got one of my favorites, the Ferrari Super America, the Lexus LFA, which basically delivery miles only. Yeah. The list goes on and on. Is there one that stands out in your mind you haven't already talked about?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Jaguars probably. I think those to me represent, I think, the XJ220, especially the way that car looks on the road even today is just mind-boggling. But I think that represents, like I said, that period of like figuring out the hypercar formula, or the modern supercar formula. The Super America obviously is a kind of a rap video car for me that I remember from seeing in rap videos as a kid. And then I think there was one more that you mentioned. Oh, the 512 is just super rad. I mean, just like totally insane looking race car. The BBLM, super cool. But yeah, I think it's got to be the Jags for me. I mean, I think, like, again, also the fact that they were Jaguars, and Jaguar really hasn't come back with a car like that since in production. They haven't had that like hypercar presence since then. Makes them somewhat more interesting to me. And I think too, it's like having a Jag supercar or hypercar, or however you want to define it, is cool. Like that's like it's a little bit different, like, and I'll always too, like, I remember seeing an XJ220 for the first time on the freeway, and it was another car that you could see coming 2 miles away. It was like, immediately like, oh, that's not a Ford Taurus. That's not a that's not a Corvette. It's a different something. So yeah, I think it's got to be the Jags for me.
Okay. All right. Well, I know we just went through a bunch of cars that are coming up to our Monterey sale here. And like I said before, I'll have a follow-up episode that goes more in depth on most of these cars I talked about. So if you want to hear more, be sure to tune into that. Rory, anything else you wanted to cover about the big Monterey sale coming up?
No, I would say if you're coming to Monterey, come see us and come walk around. We'll have a preview on Wednesday, and come say hello if you want to get close to these cars and see them up close. It's an incredible opportunity to do it. So certainly say hi to me if you see me. And yeah, hope to see a bunch of your listeners out there. Hope to see you out there. You'll be there. All right. Yeah. I'll be excited to shake your hand and catch up a little bit. But yeah, come see us in Monterey, and yeah, we'll probably talk to you after that, eh?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Have a beer or two, right?
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Rory, for joining us on the Collector Car Podcast.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.